So, let's talk about the fall of a company again. A studio that, at one point, genuinely felt like it could do no wrong. I'm talking about Ubisoft, back when their games actually had identity, risk-taking, and a sense that each release was trying to say something, not just occupy store shelves. Because somewhere along the line, that stopped. Instead of evolving ideas, they started reskinning them. Same framework, same structure, same formula, just layered with a different historical coat of paint. And that brings us back to the long-running obsession. The Ass-N-Greed series, Assassin's Creed, a franchise that went from philosophical assassin fantasy to open-world checklist generator. And I'll be honest, I'd already written this one off years ago. I looked at it once, saw one mechanic I didn't like, and just moved on. But after years of Ubisoft fatigue, I decided to go back and actually look at what I missed, starting with what is essentially the closing chapter of that original structure. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Daemon, and today we're diving back into Ubisoft's transitional era with Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now, what's interesting here is that Rogue isn't trying to be a revolution, it's trying to be a reversal. For the first time in the series, you're not playing the assassin. You're not being told they're the heroes. Instead, you're placed in the boots of Shay Patrick Cormac, and you slowly start to realize something the franchise had been avoiding for years. Neither side is clean. So, Shay isn't a traditional villain. He's not, mustache-twirling evil or anything like that. He's a believer who just gets disillusioned. He is a guy who watches the Brotherhood make increasingly reckless decisions and starts asking the question nobody else really wants to answer. What if we're wrong? And honestly, that's where Rogue actually works way better than it usually gets credit for. Because, look, it doesn't just flip the morality switch instantly. It actually builds it up. The assassins don't just suddenly become evil overnight. They become confident. Way too confident, honestly. Too willing to accept collateral damage in the name of the so-called greater good. And Shay? He's the one character willing to actually say, out loud, that maybe the cost is just too high. That Lisbon sequence, man, that's the turning point, and it still holds up as one of the franchise's strongest narrative gut punches. You're not just watching a disaster, you're causing it. And for once, the series doesn't let you off the hook. There's no cinematic excuse, no soft landing, just consequences. And that actually matters, because from that moment on, Shay doesn't feel like he's defecting, he feels like he's reacting, and that's why his journey into the Templars doesn't come off like a heel turn. It feels honestly like inevitability. What's clever here is how the game reframes the assassins over time. You start seeing them not as noble freedom fighters, but as people who genuinely believe their ideology justifies everything. And once you reach that point, every target you take down stops feeling like betrayal and starts feeling like correction. Even the structure of the game reinforces this. You're hunting former allies. You're revisiting familiar systems, but now with inverted intent. The world doesn't change, but your interpretation of it does. And that's a far more interesting idea than Ubisoft usually gets credit for. There's also something quietly effective about Shay's relationship with Haytham Kenway, one of the few times the franchise lets ideology actually breathe. Not shouting, not spectacle, just conversation, manipulation, and mutual understanding between two people who think they're right for very different reasons. And then, of course, there are the set pieces. The collapsing Lisbon sequence is still the standout. Pure chaos, architecture folding in on itself while you're scrambling through destruction. It's one of those rare moments where you can see what this franchise could have been if it leaned harder into consequence-driven storytelling instead of map clutter. Now, gameplay-wise, this is where the cracks start to show. because this is still built on the naval framework introduced in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. And I'll say it again, I never liked it there, and I still don't love it here. It slows everything down, and for me, it always feels like padding between the actual interesting parts of the game. And that frustration is what originally pushed me away from Rogue entirely. I saw the ship combat return, rolled my eyes and jumped straight to Assassin's Creed Unity instead, which, let's be honest, was its own kind of disaster at launch. Beautiful disaster, but still a disaster. But revisiting Rogue now, I can at least respect what it's doing. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, it's trying to refine a smaller, more contained experience. And honestly, that's probably why it works better than it should. Because it's not bloated, it doesn't outstay its welcome. It tells a focused story in a focused space and then ends. At around 6 to 8 hours, it feels less like a full mainline entry and more like a standalone expansion, almost like a prototype for what later became smaller, tighter spin-off experiences in other franchises, and that's not a bad thing. If anything, it's refreshing. Now, there is one mission I need to talk about, though, because it genuinely tested my patience. The one where you're chasing Achilles. Now, I don't know who decided that chase needed to be that long, but I was running around for what felt like an eternity. Not tension-building eternity, not cinematic pursuit eternity, just where the hell did she go now eternity. It dragged, completely broke the momentum of what should have been a key emotional moment. And I'll be honest, I nearly stopped playing right there. It's one of those design decisions that reminds you Ubisoft has always struggled with pacing when they lean too heavily into gameplay loops over narrative impact. But despite all of that, I didn't hate Rogue this time, because I went in expecting another example of franchise fatigue, another copy-paste entry in a series that had long overstayed its philosophical welcome. Instead, I found something more restrained, more focused, and ironically, more honest than a lot of what came after it. Shay's story works because it challenges the binary the franchise was built on. Assassin good, Templar bad? Rogue says, what if that was never true? And once that question is asked, the whole franchise starts to wobble. Thanks for dropping by the Snake Pit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where naturally I won't read them. Until next time, stay venomous.